before we start to get into Michaela Montgomery and who she is and what her background is and how she came to be, and we get into the jobs and we go into California and Chevron is now leaving California for Texas. We're going to get into all of that. Everything that y'all think, different people talking about their experiences in the job market, new layoffs, 19,000 people was laid off from another company. We're going to dive into that. But we got to get into international relations first, right? And the reason that I think that international relations are so important is because it's directly tied to whether or not your tax dollars is being spent effectively, and more importantly, who you're going to vote for in this November election. And so we like to ignore all of the core issues and the problems that's ultimately causing inflation, that's causing you to lose a job, that ultimately will plunge us into a deeper recession, which ultimately leads to a depression. And we like to ignore those type of things, but I think that those type of things are absolutely important. And so over the weekend, they're basically saying that the United States of America is basically plunging themselves deeper into these proxy wars, which not only includes Ukraine and the chip war that we got going on with China over there in Taiwan, but also Iran and Israel. And I believe personally that we need to mind our own business and stop participating in all of these proxy wars, which ultimately lead to you giving all of your American dollars over into it. But let me tell you what's happening over in Iran and Israel right now.
The U.S. is now sending a carrier strike group, warships, and a fighter squadron to the Middle East, bracing for a potential escalation, a further one, of hostilities as Iran vows retaliation over the killing of a senior Hamas leader in Tehran earlier this week. It blames Israel for the attack. Israel has not commented. Growing tensions between Israel and Hezbollah and Iran are also prompting a new warning on Lebanon. The U.S. Embassy in Beirut is warning America.
This is so dumb, man. This is so dumb. Honestly, my question then becomes, who's really the ones that's making money off these wars? And don't just say the big companies. Nah, man. Look, man, I understand world peace, but I also understand that it's important, very important, for a lot of people to make a lot of profits. And, you know, on the Millionaire Morning Show, we don't just want to say, oh, man, we just don't want to. Who else is really benefiting from this? Because you can't tell me that this is good for the American people. Remember we supposed to be Americans first? We gonna look out for the rest of the world. We gonna participate in making sure that we keep the world safe. I'm all for it, cool. But at the same time, we got to take care of home before we start getting the beam out of your own eye. Who are the ones that, honest to God, are genuinely benefiting from the trillions of dollars that we spend on an annual basis on all of these wars? What the heck is happening, and how is this administration truly justifying, considering all of the monies that's going out of the United States of America and how much is really happening in its economy, in this country? Just more billions. And then they package it with the Homeland Security border deal and say, well, no, it's supposed to be a bipartisan deal. Nobody, and I mean nobody. You know how they had the memes where they say nobody and then they say, you know, whatever it is. Nobody in the United States of America, if they took a poll today and they say, hey, listen, do you think that we should continue to hold it down and participate in these wars? Nobody, and I mean nobody, is saying that, yo, I want to continue to fight with Iran in endless, profitable for somebody wars. Nobody is wanting this. Nobody. Zero, zilch, nada.
Americans who want to get out of the country to book, quote, any ticket available. This as airlines begin canceling flights in and out of the country. CNN's Ben Wiedemann is in Beirut. And Ben, you've covered so many periods like this in Lebanon through the years. I wonder, as you watch events there and reactions, are folks really bracing for something big?
Yes, they are. People are very worried that even though over the last 10 months we've had periods of high tension followed by periods of relative calm, but now this one seems worse than anything before. Now, the U.S. Embassy, in addition to telling people just book any ticket you can, they warned that evacuations for...
Where are they booking these tickets to? Just a question. Where are they booking these tickets to? When they say, oh man, just book a ticket, they leaving some very important information out of that equation. Book a ticket where? Where are they booking the tickets to? Where are these airlines flying these people to? Book a ticket where? Chicago, New York, Denver, Atlanta. Where are they booking these tickets to? I'm just curious. Where you going? Where you going?
U.S. nationals, in the event things get even worse, could be very difficult. And back in 2006, when the airport was struck in the early days of the war by Israeli warplanes, the U.S. did manage to evacuate some of the U.S. nationals out of here, but it was quite chaotic. Now, for instance, Kuwaiti Airlines is the latest airlines to announce that it's going to stop flying to Beirut. Tomorrow, they said, is their last flight, and it's not clear when they will resume flying to Beirut. That's just the latest airline to make such an announcement. Today, we also heard from the Minister of Economy and Trade, who warned people not to hoard food. He reassured the public that there is an adequate amount of food available. At the moment, you don't really get the sense that
when they tell you don't hoard food, start hoarding food, fam.
there is panic, but there is real fear.
What up to all of my friends at APS?
When Hezbollah, when Iran retaliate for this series of assassinations here in Beirut and in Tehran, that this time it's not going to be like in April, where it was a very orchestrated, telegraphed strike by Iran 12 days after that Israeli strike on the diplomatic complex in Damascus. This time, it's widely believed that not only will Iran strike, but all of its allies in the region. Hezbollah, of course, and we've heard Secretary General of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, say that's what they're going to do, but also the Houthis in Yemen and various pro-Iranian militias in Syria and Iraq. So the stage is set for perhaps a very dangerous period, not just here in Lebanon, but across the Middle East. Jim?
Surprise! Surprise! More war. more war.
And listen, an attack like that would inevitably set up the conditions for a response against all of those parties, and yet one more cycle of violence. Ben Wiedemann in Beirut, thanks so much.
Insane, huh?
So let's break down some of these developments. With me here is Andrew Miller. He's the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Israeli-Palestinian Affairs. This is a really dicey time there, which, I mean, we could say so many times in recent months and years, but particularly now.
What you got to say about this?
What is your expectation about the degree of Iran's response here? Because if that assessment is correct and it's going to be multi-pronged with Iran and its proxies, that's a major escalation.
Well, I think one thing to understand is that despite the successful interception of the April attack by the U.S., Israel, and partners, that was very much a perfect storm. Everything went right. Yeah.
Let me tell you something, man. Here's my question. I got a couple questions as an American, because I have a unique view on this based off of the fact that I don't want any more new wars. I don't want the United States of America to continue to send our tax dollars over into something that we can control. I don't want to be a part of NATO to where we're the ones that's funding the majority of what goes over into there. I don't want them to say, well, we're not sending in no new troops, but we're going to send a whole bunch of money in order to build a bunch of weapons and all of this stuff and participating in it. I am not interested in it. Aside from that, because nobody wants war. Nobody wants to do it, especially when the economy is going into a recession and probably into a depression. But here's my question, right? And this is what I want you guys to think about when they parade out Meg Thee Stallion in front of y'all and they keep on hitting on the same points and saying, Trump want to take abortion away from the women. No, he said that he wanted to make sure that he gave it to the states to have a conversation about. We all know that. They're going to continue to say a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense. Here's my question for y'all. When you think about the leader of the United States of America and the decisions that they have to make when it comes to facing world leaders, managing wars, determining whether or not we should even be participating in these wars in the first place, bringing troops home, international policy, being diplomatic as far as going back and forth and negotiating for hostages, who you trade out, who you keep, whatever, right? How much money you send over to Russia when you then get Paul Whelan back, who you send over there, and then what you get back in return. why we got Brittany Griner and why we traded for the Russian merchant of death and how that benefited the United States of America versus continue to give y'all diversity, equity, and inclusion to make sure that y'all vote a certain way. When we think about all of these things and we think about the proxy wars and we think about Taiwan and, going back and forth with China for Taiwan in order to be able to secure more chips while we try to build up our own chip infrastructure and it's being incentivized by the federal government. When we start to talk about all of these things and we really take into consideration what's happening in these streets, right? And we start to think about who our leaders should be at the forefront of these movements as far as going back and forth with these men, these monstrous, massive budgets, alliances, men negotiating across the board. Would you love to see, just a general idea, would you love to see Kamala Harris parade herself out there and stand in front of these leaders and say we are or we aren't, or whether or not we're going to participate in a war? Because, she's a part of the very administration that don't want to acknowledge. She's a part of the very administration that's got us into these wars in the first place. These proxy wars, by the way, it's not actual physical wars. I want to give them a little bit of credit. Or would you like to see somebody who has successfully managed to keep us out of war from 2016 through 2020 in the first place? Just curious. Would you prefer to see honestly, because we need to take this into consideration amongst all of the different things that we're talking about: jobs, inflation, immigration, communities, funding of different things, layoffs, all of this stuff that's happening in the economy and on American soil, immigration crisis into your cities, taking away whatever, white jobs, black jobs, Indian jobs, I don't really care. All of the layoffs, y'all can't feed your family. You go to the grocery store and it costs you triple what it cost you 10 years ago, okay? When we think about this, right, and we really put it in perspective, when it comes to foreign policy, international wars, bringing troops home, managing our military, making a smart decision, pressing a button, having the nuke codes, and how other leaders view our leaders here in the United States of America, in addition to who we got in Congress, right? Because those members matter also. Who would you rather have at the helm to manage these the United States of America versus all of these other countries? Would you rather have Trump or would you rather have Kamala? Because, while they give you and parade for you games and they do shoot commercials with Taraji P. Henson and they say, oh, girl, they not like us. Would you rather have Trump at the helm or would you rather have Kamala Harris? Honest to God question. Because I'm going to just tell you, I'm tired. I'm tired of the wars. I'm tired of our monies and our tax dollars. I'm tired of them holding our borders over a barrel and trying to justify not funding, closing off our borders in order to package it with a deal to send it over into these 3 different countries. I'm tired. Gets a little old after a while. They depend on us to have PTSD. They depend on us to normalize things so that it doesn't seem like it's a big deal. Oh, this is just a part of what's supposed to happen. We supposed to spend the majority of our monies on these things. No, it's not normal. It's not normal. I'm tired. I'm tired about hearing about it. I'm tired about hearing about how it is that we're going to continue to participate in these wars. And we act like we're not having no wars because American troops is not a part of it, but our tax dollars are. I'm tired. It's over. It's tiresome for me personally, but I'm just asking y'all, don't worry about it. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it. I just wanted to give y'all my thoughts on that, and I wanted to keep y'all updated on what's happening when it comes to world news, because that's something that's often not talked about amongst our black leaders in morning shows, and we tend to focus on the surface level stuff, and we're not paying attention to what's really happening behind the scenes. All right, let me